watch how and make sense of what the crop could look like. So observation, so to say, then became part of me. Now, the question is, in my life as a statistician general, have I seen people's appetite for numbers? I'm yet to see people with a strong appetite for numbers. The one politician that I know was very eager with numbers was President Mbeki. The others, I haven't seen much of that. I've yet to hear what is happening there, because he really appears with a very sharp razor on the numbers as we present them. For instance, when he had just received the results of the census of 2001, so I was briefing him before he could deliver his speech. 30 minutes before he delivers his speech, say, President, here are the numbers, because he doesn't have preside, but at least he has to have some level so that he can respond. So he sees this, picks up this category, which is formal, informal housing. So under informal housing, we got the shacks, we got the roundabouts, nomad, and so he says, but the roundable where I was born in Iduchwa, that roundable is still standing. These RDPs of yours, when you cough, the roof goes off. And now what is formal about those structures? So you could see the interest, but there was a lot of interest in the numbers, including around HIV and AIDS, as he immersed himself in that. In the main, I think there were two things that he was thinking about. Has the science been, done? Is there an interest? Yes, is there an interest in financing and the like? Because if the science has not been cleared well, financial interests will creep in, and then of course, when we looked at South Africa at $9 a treatment of COVID, one treatment. If we had 6 million people infected as it was discovered, the whole budget would be an AIDS budget, and there would be no health budget at all. So the question was, what then do you do in that kind of... So he was very, very much immersed in the numbers. What do they imply in terms of your fiscus when you have so many other things to attend to? And has the science been cleared? I mean, at the moment with COVID, everybody now speaks, critiques. It became very fashionable for politicians to critique issues around COVID. It wasn't when there was HIV. He was the sole person talking to this. And South Africans forget that we paid the price, because the multinationals that were producing these things were refusing us to use ordinary generics. India was already producing generics. We couldn't access that. They wanted us to access these others. That battle of accessing generics was Mbeki's fight. The second fight was a single regime that has now been put in place, where you don't have 9 tablets or whatever it is, that there must be one regime so that you don't confuse people with all these things. So you can see the level of detail that he reached out to in terms of numbers. The employment and unemployment numbers, will complain about that and say, well, I mean, and he took us on that, on the unemployment numbers. And we then, as he said, well, how are these calculated? Are there things that are not done well? So we brought some consultants who had really done some interesting work on labor statistics from a statistics point of view. Obviously, at the end of it, there was no difference. Of course, he couldn't go anywhere. However, there was an improvement in terms of sensitivity of measuring, which is, can we measure this on a quarterly basis instead of only twice a year? So the quarterly labor force survey was introduced in 2008 with a lot more improvements in the instrument itself. So you can see a person who was immersed in numbers. He didn't say use that method or use that method, but he facilitated that process of ensuring that the Statistician-General has the latitude to do his work. Obviously, you'd ask questions about the numbers. So I'm giving you a glimpse of the level of engagement, be it in HIV and AIDS, the census numbers, or the labor statistics numbers, which ultimately said, well, the Statistician-General has beaten me. So now.
Having spoken about politicians opining on, of course, a very divisive matter, the AIDS virus being as a narrative sold against the person of Thabo Mbeki, it is said that he is to blame, he should shoulder the blame for a lot of lives lost. Do you think the way he interrogated these numbers, the fault was on him because he delayed, because this is what people are telling us?
No, not quite. I mean, people are critiquing COVID now, so people still accessed this. But the one thing that was happening was the collusion between the doctors and or the collusion between patients and doctors, because they wouldn't declare accurately what killed the person. On the certificate, they would say it's cold. They'll never write HIV and AIDS because people would not get their insurance claim if the person died of HIV and AIDS. So this cannot be blamed on him. The doctors and the patients, and the doctors really realizing that people may not get their benefits or may be discriminated against because of the status. So at some point, there were only 9,000 HIV AIDS deaths in South Africa, when actually the number of deaths that died as a condition existing in them of HIV and AIDS was reaching numbers that were high. At an earlier stage, I think the attribution of deaths to AIDS was the wrong thing. I worked in the homeland of Botswana, and I knew the weaknesses of amalgamating numbers from different areas and the political responses of people to an apartheid system where people kept the green book that Botha, when Botha in 1986, I think, said South Africa's Botswana or other homelands, they took the green book, but they also kept Lehohla split, so they could go and have pensions from both sides. When the amalgamation occurred, but the green book and the book from Botswana, and then when you get that, you tend to exaggerate the population. But when the deaths, which were never registered, came online, the spike in deaths showed. And that spike was not date of occurrence of deaths,